Every day, a dog waited at a train station. Not for food, not for shelter, not because someone told him to. He waited for one person, his owner. Every afternoon, the routine was the same. The train arrived, people stepped onto the platform, and the dog happily greeted the man he loved most. Until one day, the man never came back. But the dog didn't know that. So the next day, he returned to the station, and the day after that, and the day after that. Weeks passed, months passed, years passed. Yet, he kept waiting. Many people know this story as Hachiko, the loyal dog who waited at a Japanese train station for nearly 10 years after his owner died. But here's the question most people never ask. What was happening inside that dog's mind? Did he understand death? Did he know his owner was gone? Or was he simply waiting for someone who had always come home before? And if the same thing happened to you, what would your dog do? Would they keep checking the front door? Would they sleep beside your empty chair? Would they wait by the window every evening? Today we're going to explore one of the most emotional questions in dog psychology. What actually happens when a dog loses the person they love most? And the answer may be far more heartbreaking and far more beautiful than most people realize. Does your dog understand death? Most people assume dogs understand death the same way humans do. But they don't. Humans understand permanence. We understand the future. We understand that someone can be gone forever. Dogs experience the world differently. They live much more in the present. They understand absence. They understand change. They understand when a routine suddenly breaks. And that's where things become interesting. Because your dog may not fully understand what death means. But they absolutely understand when someone important disappears. Imagine waking up tomorrow and one member of your family simply never comes home again. The chair they usually sit in remains empty. Their bedroom smells different. Their voice is gone. Their footsteps never appear in the hallway. Their car never enters the driveway. For humans, those clues eventually tell a story. For dogs, they tell a feeling. Something has changed. Something important is missing. And something doesn't feel right anymore. Think about your own dog for a moment. How quickly do they notice when you leave the room? How quickly do they notice when your routine changes? Most dogs pay far more attention to us than we realize. They notice where we sit. They notice what time we wake up. They notice the sounds we make. They notice the small habits we repeat every day. Now, imagine all of those signals suddenly disappearing. Your dog may never think, "My owner has died." But they may absolutely think, "The person I love is gone." And every day that person fails to return, the mystery becomes harder to understand. Not because dogs understand death, but because they understand love. And they understand loss. Even when they don't fully understand why it happened. Why some dogs keep waiting. One of the most heartbreaking things owners hear about is dogs waiting. Waiting by the front door, waiting by the window, waiting near the driveway, or returning again and again to the same place where they last saw someone they loved. Why do they do it? The answer is surprisingly simple. Because waiting worked before. Think about your own dog's life. How many times have you left the house? Hundreds, thousands, every morning, every weekend, every trip to the store, every day at work. For your dog, a pattern slowly forms. You leave, then you come back. You leave again, then you come back again. And after years of repetition, that pattern begins to feel like a law of nature. No matter how long you're gone, you always return. That's why stories like Hachiko continue to touch people around the world. Many people see a dog waiting and assume the dog understands exactly what happened. But dog psychology suggests something different. The dog isn't necessarily waiting because he understands death. He's waiting because his entire life has taught him that waiting works. Every previous experience tells him the same thing. Keep watching. Keep waiting. They'll be back.
Oh,
Imagine
hey, buddy.
being told a train arrives every afternoon
I
at
miss you
exactly
so
the
much.
same time. Then one day it doesn't. Would you stop checking immediately? Probably not. You would check again tomorrow, and the day after that, because your past experiences would keep telling you the train is coming. Dogs think in a very similar way, not through words, not through complex explanations, but through patterns. And patterns are powerful. That's why many grieving dogs continue checking doors long after their owner is gone. Not because they understand the future,
Oh,
but
hey,
because
buddy.
the past
Hi.
keeps giving them hope.
How's my good boy?
Tomorrow, tonight,
Hey.
any
Missed
minute
you
now.
so much.
Maybe the car will pull into the driveway. Maybe the front door will open. Maybe those familiar footsteps will finally return. And every day, those things don't happen. The confusion grows a little larger, because from the dog's perspective, the pattern has broken. The person they loved disappeared. But the part that makes it so heartbreaking
Oh, I missed
is
you
this.
so much, boy.
They may not know why. They only
Look who
know
it
that
is.
someone
I'm so
important
happy to
is
see
missing,
you.
and that
I'm
is
home,
often
buddy.
enough to keep them waiting. The signs of grief most people miss. Not all grieving dogs cry. Not all grieving dogs become dramatic. Many become quiet, very quiet.
Hey, boy,
And
wanna
that's
play?
one reason
Go
grief
get
in
it.
dogs
Come on,
is
fun
so
time.
easy to miss.
Whimper.
Because most of
Okay,
us
maybe
expect
later then,
sadness
buddy.
to look obvious. We expect clear signs.
Okay,
But
here you
dogs
go,
often
buddy.
express emotional pain in much
Dig
smaller
in.
ways. Some sleep more than usual. A dog that
All right,
once
buddy,
followed
just
you
need to
around
grab
the house
something.
may suddenly
Okay, I'm
spend
with you.
hours lying
Let's head
alone.
outside for some fresh
Some
air.
lose interest in
On it.
toys they once loved. The tennis ball sits untouched. The favorite rope remains on the floor. The excitement simply isn't there anymore. Some dogs eat less. Not enough to alarm
Come here,
a
buddy.
veterinarian, but
Not
enough
right
that
now.
family
Suit
members begin
yourself.
saying things like, "He's just not himself lately." Others stop playing altogether. They still go through their daily routine. They still go outside. They still respond when called. But the enthusiasm is gone, and perhaps one of the most surprising signs is increased attachment. Some dogs become unusually
I wish I
clingy
knew what
after
was
losing
wrong.
someone important. They follow remaining family
Maybe she
members
just
from
needs
room to
time.
room. They watch them constantly. They seem unwilling to be alone, almost as if they're afraid another person might disappear too. But not every dog responds that way. Others do the exact opposite. They become distant. They spend more time by themselves. They withdraw from social interaction. They seek quiet places. And because these behaviors look so different, many owners never realize they may come from the same emotional experience. Grief. The signs can vary, but they often share one thing: a loss of enthusiasm. The world feels different. The routine feels different. The emotional center of their life has changed. The person who greeted them every morning, the person who took them on walks, the person who sat beside them every evening, suddenly isn't there anymore. And because these changes happen gradually, many families don't immediately recognize them as grief. They assume the dog is getting older, or becoming lazy, or simply having a bad week. But sometimes, what they're actually seeing
Come
is a
on, boy,
dog
let's
trying
go.
to adapt to a loss they don't fully understand. And that's what
boy.
makes canine grief so heartbreaking.
Here we are.
Not because dogs understand death the way we do, but because they notice when love disappears from their daily lives. Why your emotions matter too. Something else happens after a loss. The family grieves too. And dogs notice, far more than most people realize. They notice crying, they notice stress, they notice changes in routine. They notice when people stop laughing. They notice when conversations become quieter. They notice when someone spends more time sitting alone. Remember something important. Dogs don't just observe what we do. They constantly read how we feel. Researchers have found that dogs are remarkably sensitive to human emotional cues. Our facial expressions, our body language, even the tone of our voice. This means that when a family experiences a loss, the dog isn't only losing one person. They're also living inside a household that suddenly feels different. Imagine a home that used to feel predictable. People laughed, people talked, people moved through familiar routines. Then suddenly, everything changes. The dog notices that change immediately. This helps explain something many owners find confusing. Sometimes a dog appears deeply affected by the loss of someone they weren't especially close to. Why? Because they're not only responding to the missing person, they're responding to the emotional atmosphere surrounding the loss. They're reading the room. They're trying to understand why everyone feels different. And often, they're just as confused as everyone else. Have you ever noticed your dog becoming quieter when someone in the house is upset? Let me know in the comments, because many owners discover their dogs are paying attention long before they realize it. Can dogs ever move on? One question appears again and again whenever people talk about grieving dogs. Will they ever recover? The answer is usually yes. But recovery doesn't look the way many people imagine. Dogs don't wake up one morning and suddenly forget. They don't decide to move on. Instead, they slowly adapt. A new routine forms, new experiences appear, new emotional bonds develop, and little by little, life begins to feel normal again. Some owners feel guilty when they see this happen, as though the dog is forgetting the person who was lost. But that's not what's happening. Healing isn't forgetting. A child can lose a parent and still laugh again. A spouse can lose a partner and still smile again. The same principle often applies to dogs. The bond remains, the memories remain, the attachment remains, but life continues. And perhaps that's one of the most beautiful things about dogs. Their ability to keep loving even after loss. What actually helps? If a dog loses someone important, what helps most? Surprisingly, it's not trying to erase the loss, it's creating stability. Because after a major change, predictability becomes incredibly valuable. Keep feeding times consistent. Keep walking schedules consistent. Keep bedtime routines consistent. Keep familiar habits in place whenever possible. Why? Because routine creates a sense of safety. When part of a dog's world suddenly disappears, the remaining routines remind them that not everything has changed. Allow access to favorite sleeping areas. Allow access to familiar objects. Spend time together. And perhaps most importantly, be patient. Many owners worry when their dog seems sad for weeks, but adjustment takes time, for dogs and for people. Researchers who study attachment in dogs often compare it to attachment in young children. Strong emotional bonds don't simply disappear overnight. And neither does grief. The goal isn't to make your dog forget. The goal is to help them feel safe while adapting to a new reality. Because eventually, most dogs do begin to heal. They play again. They become excited again. They reconnect with the people around them. Not because they stopped loving the person they lost, but because healing and love can exist at the same time. And perhaps that's the most beautiful thing about dogs. They carry love forward, even after loss. The next time your dog waits for you at the door, remember something. To you, walking out the door may feel completely ordinary. A trip to work, a quick errand, a normal day. But to your dog, your return is one of the most important moments in their world. You may only be one chapter in your own life, but to your dog, you are one of the most important parts of theirs. Maybe that's why they watch you leave. Maybe that's why they wait. And maybe that's why your return means so much. So tell me below, who is your dog's favorite person? And what does your dog do when that person leaves the house? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if this video helped you understand your dog a little better, don't forget to subscribe for more insights into dog psychology.